Welcome back to Access Houston on 97.9 The Box.
Good Sunday morning. You're listening to Access Houston. Welcome back to the Access Houston Roundtable. Today we have the Justice of the Peace. These are a bunch of individuals who are candidates. So I'll have you all go around and introduce yourselves, starting with Mr. Ray Shackleford.
Yes, sir. Good morning, KG. Good morning, Samantha. Good morning to my counterparts here at the table. My name is Ray Shackleford. I am a native Houstonian, born and raised in 3rd Ward, graduate of Morehouse College, U of H for my MBA. Been active in the community for some time, past 10 years. Media past president of Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals, current Southern Region Vice President for the National Urban League Young Professionals. Also serve on the Independent Police Oversight Board for the City of Houston, as well as the body-worn camera audit team. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. But a concerned citizen and a candidate for Harris County Justice of the Peace, Precinct 7, Place 2.
Man, community warrior. This man is like a Jamaican.
That's a great resume.
10 jobs, man. Yes, Audrie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Audrie Lawton. I am also running for Harris County Justice of the Peace, Precinct 7, Place 2. I'm also a native Houstonian, grew up in the Sunnyside area. I've been licensed to practice law for the last 15 years. I am a graduate of Thurgood Marshall School of Law in 2002. Since then, I've worked for the Attorney General of Texas, the State Bar of Texas as an assistant disciplinary counsel, the Special Prosecution Unit of Texas, and I've had my own law firm. At this time, I am an assistant general counsel at Patrick O'Connor and Associates, where I practice mainly in justice courts. I am a presenter. I was asked by Judge David Patronella to present on practicing law in justice courts, and I'm currently sit on the committee for the Texas Bar CLE on justice court practice. I believe I'm the candidate that has the most relevant legal experience because I am in justice courts all the time. I also am a community leader. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Jack and Jill of America. I guess I would say donated my time or pro bono work for the Texas Organizing Project. And I have a great vision for this courthouse and the community.
Indeed. Thank you. Sam Blair on the air.
It is Sam Blair on the air. It's always fun to be here. I can't wait to see what all of these candidates have to talk about today because I have a lot of very pointed questions for you guys. Just off the dome, again, not going to attack you, but I can't wait to hear what you got to say.
Yes, indeed. And Mr. Coldwell.
Good morning. I'm Mr. DC Daniel Coldwell. I am the first non-Democrat candidate to run in this race since 1996.
Wow.
I am the Thurgood Marshall School of Law Federalist Society student chapter president. I am a current student. I understand that going directly from law school to being a judge is kind of presumptuous, but there's precedent in Texas. A Texas judge by the name of John Payton holds the Guinness Book of World Records for youngest judge in the world who was elected as Justice of the Peace at the age of 18. Prior to law school, I was an Eagle Scout. I completed 4 years in the Corps of Cadets ROTC program at Texas A&M University, and I enlisted in the Texas State Guard. I am bilingual. I speak Spanish. I will spare our listeners my complete introduction in Spanish. I taught high school.
Well, we have a huge Hispanic audience on the box. Yeah. So you speak to them.
Finish it in Spanish.
Pues, yo enseñé geometría en escuela secundaria.
I was joking.
He said you open the door, he's going to walk right.
I am also a notary public. I want to represent that I am the liberty candidate. I kind of hold the platform that government needs to leave people the heck alone as much as possible.
Nice. And Mr. Durrell Douglas.
Yes, Durrell Douglas, the co-founder and president of HoustonJustice.org, a grassroots organization, member-led, aimed at making criminal justice advancement at the local level.
Indeed. Well, thank you all, and good morning. So first, what is the justice of the peace?
All right, well, I'll chime in since ladies first, I assume. Okay, so the Justice of the Peace Court handles, they have exclusive jurisdiction over landlord-tenant, so eviction cases, cases from $250 up to $10,000 in disputes, so small claims. If you want to sue your neighbor, your local mechanic, suits like that. They handle Class C misdemeanors, as well as in ticket cases, some truancy cases, debt collection cases. So that's the parameters of the type of law that's handled in the JP court.
Okay. And you all are running because why?
So for me personally, I'm running because, as I mentioned before, this community I'm from, I grew up here, been a lifelong resident of Precinct 7. And as you mentioned, with my extensive community resume, as somebody who's been in the community, and that's how I've come into contact with you previously on Get Out the Vote campaigns and various efforts. I'm somebody who understands the needs of the community. I'm very passionate about it. And this is a unique seat because it was intended and created for somebody who was a member of the community to help resolve community issues. And as somebody who is that and knows I can make sure they have a voice for the community in that bench, that's why I'm running for this seat.
Indeed.
And I'm running, for some of the same reasons as he just mentioned, but also as a practicing attorney in this court, I've seen firsthand some of the things that need improvement. You're more likely to end up in a JP court than any other court in this country. And so they handle a large volume of cases. A lot of times, the number one complaint that I've heard for JP courts is that you may go in at 8 o'clock and you may not get out until, close to 5 sometimes in some courts. And so I see that there's a need for improvement in technology. There's a need for improvement of the docketing system. I also believe in a huge educational component. And although from the bench as a judge, I cannot practice law for particular people, I can't give advice or legal advice, but I do believe that our community needs to be educated on the laws that affect them. And so that's one thing that I think that I can affect a lot of change in this court. I would be a huge proponent of providing educational resources, bringing outside organizations in to host seminars after court hours, Saturdays. I want to open up a resource center that would be located on the courthouse premises that would provide computers, forms, literature, anything somebody who would have to represent themselves and could not afford an attorney would need to effectively represent themselves in my court.
I would like to address a couple points that
Go ahead, pull up, get comfortable. It moves. You can.
In her almost thorough description of the Justice of the Peace role that Ms. Lawton left out. Under the Texas Constitution, a Justice of the Peace is a conservator of the peace. We frequently abbreviate that as COP. A JP is a cop. It is their job, once someone has been arrested, to determine under the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution whether there was probable cause for the arrest before that person stays in police custody more than 48 hours. They are there to protect and serve, and sometimes their role is to protect people from the government itself, because sometimes cops get a little overzealous. We've all seen videos of that on the internet. So that is an important point that I want to address, because I didn't hear her say that JPs sign warrants. So that if a cop has permission to come into your house, a Justice of the Peace is the one that gave it to him.
And point of clarification on that, only a JP who is an actual licensed attorney can actually sign a warrant. So if you looked at Judge Coffey, and I think he's in the 3-2, that's something that he's implemented since he's been in office, and it's something that is available. As an attorney, I would also be available in the middle of the night to sign search warrants, all of those things. So he is correct, but you do have to be an attorney.
So I know that usually on the campaign trail for races that are judicial, you can't really ask your thoughts on laws, right? But I do want to sort of broaden it a little bit and say, you know, the school to prison pipeline, does that exist? And if yes or no, how do you see your role being part of that?
So it definitely exists. And I think you have a number of different sources that point to that, even with some of the work I've done in the Urban League, when you look at how they've targeted children that can't read by a certain point in grade school. I believe it's third grade. If you're not reading at a certain level, they begin to actually build and construct prisons. And so there's data that backs that up. And also, if you look at some of the disparity when it comes to in-school suspensions as it relates to children of color versus some of their white counterparts. And there's a number of other different things you can reference. And so one of the things I've gotten an opportunity to do is actually working on a transition team for diversity with District Attorney Kim Ogg. We actually looked at how do we make sure that they're taking that into account in the district attorney's office. And so one of the recommendations that we gave on that committee was looking at where are you pulling your attorneys from? Are you pulling them from HBCUs, like a TSU, like a Thurgood, like a Morehouse? Where are you getting these people from? What's their background? Have they actually been doing work in the community? That needs to be an important component when you're bringing these prosecutors, these different attorneys into the office, because if they're not connected to the community, obviously they're not going to be sensitive to what's taking place by the time they get there. And at that point, it's honestly too late. And so I think there's a number of different things that point to it and how you can address it. Now, as it relates to me, once I get in the seat, specifically, I've already looked at implementing an internship program for high school and college students that are in the precincts. You're talking about Yates, you're talking about Worthing, you're talking about Madison. And the good thing is I've already been doing work at these schools, mentoring these students, providing haircuts for them following Harvey. I got barbers to donate those services. So I've already been doing the work, but that's how I plan to take it a step further once I actually get in the seat.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to respond to another comment that Ms. Lawton made, that as a judge, you can't give legal advice. Judges many times in our state and country act like gods in their own little court. They can give help to people that they know desperately need it, and if they fail to, I would say they are derelict in their duty, because it is their job to help the people who need it. We're not just there to administer justice. We're there to administer justice with due process. And due process is not about justice. Due process is about as much mercy as justice can stomach. Okay. Giving people not just what they deserve, but if we can, better than what they deserve.
Okay.
And I mean, I'd have to beg to differ. I think that you can help people in different ways. I think as the judiciary, it is not our place to actually represent the people that come before us. We are supposed to be an impartial decider. We do have functions as a gatekeeper. And I think that as a gatekeeper, you can. Now, this is the thing, is that it doesn't mean that you let someone get railroaded by the procedure, okay? That's why I'm saying that you need to give people information and educate them on the process. One thing I would want to do is to establish local rules in my courthouse. And that would show, or you'd have available to you step-by-step procedures on what you're supposed to do when you are trying to answer a lawsuit, when you come into court, what types of documents, what kind of evidence you may need to present a successful case. But I cannot give you legal advice from the bench. And so I think that that's kind of a misconception.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I actually have a question. So one of the things that you guys talked about, and something I'm very, very interested in, is specifically your role in what happens in the courthouse. One of the things that we talk about quite often is there's a disparity between those who can afford a bond and those who cannot afford a bond. And so those who can afford it tend to sit there for, I don't know how many days or hours or however long, without what seems to be due process. So in your position, how do you plan to combat those things?
Well, I'm in agreement, with I think it's Judge Stevens, don't quote me with his name, but they've changed the standard, at least now. Now, there's a lot going on as far as bail reform, and that's going on right now. But the standard now is to see if someone has the present ability to make a bond. All right, and that's different than what was there before. And so now, as a judge, you're able to look at a person on a case-by-case basis on whether or not they could actually afford the bond that is set. I'm a proponent of PR bonds, especially on a JP level.
You tell people what PR bonds.
PR bond is that it's basically that you get out on your own word, so it's personal
recognizance
bond. Yes. And so, because part of the bond process is trying to determine the seriousness of an offense, whether or not the person is going to come back to court. I think on most JP level offenses, which are Class C misdemeanors, the probability that they would come back to court is pretty high. So I don't think that there would be a need to have a high bond in those situations.
Right.
You're listening to Access Houston. We're talking to the candidates of the Justice of the Peace. Go ahead. Right.
Well, I was just going to echo that sentiment because of the types of cases that come through there. It's not really necessary. I think some of us at least are on the same page as it relates to the bail reform. Because you have a lot of people, especially when you're talking about JP court, it's meant to be the people's court. It's a community court. So you have people who don't necessarily have access to money, to resources. And so we're definitely not there to try and hinder them. And so that's why it's definitely critical to make sure that the person in that role is someone who's connected to the community. And one of the main things outside of the traffic citations is the evictions. And so as someone who actually was a certified housing counselor and had experience helping people through that process that were facing evictions and, some very heartbreaking stories because you can't help everybody. And that's one of the things that, they were kind of talking about from that seat. There are some boundaries that we obviously have to adhere to, but you are able to go out and do outreach and talk to them about bail reform and different resources and how they can get access to things to make sure that they are taken care of when they do show up to the court. So there's a lot of preventative things that I plan to do. Mirroring what I did in my role with the Urban League, doing outreach, talking to people about those programs. So I have experience doing that as well.
And very quickly, I'm very glad that you brought up the eviction thing. You guys are in, JP is, could you tell them what area that primarily is? I know you said 3rd Ward, right. Madison, Yates, kind of around the schools. But one of the things I am concerned about in terms of that is we're seeing gentrification happen in those areas. And so therefore, we're seeing evictions happen more frequently. So, just very quickly, if you could kind of focus on that or you guys.
The boundaries of the district can easily be described as Midtown, Minnetex, and Missouri City. It's kind of like a triangle. There is a sketchy west edge that is one of the least gerrymandered districts in the county. It's still gerrymandered, but it takes some turns.
I guess that's debatable, huh?
Yeah. Sketchy.
It is one of the least gerrymandered districts in the county. It's still gerrymandered.
Okay.
Why is that still going on? Gerrymandering sounds so illegal.
Man, and that's why I think President Obama, he's actually turned his focus towards that. Obviously, since he's termed out, people want to run again, but that's something he's focused on, is trying to redraw those lines. And I actually just read an article, I think it was in the Texas Tribune, about that, how they're trying to address that within the state and how essentially out of whack it is here in Texas, which also speaks to our fight in terms of trying to turn it from being so red to purple and eventually blue. They got the whole blue wave talk that they have going right now, trying to make sure that we turn out. But it also spoke to the fact that you typically have double the amount of Republicans in the state than Democrats. And so that kind of speaks to some of the issues we have. And there's a lot of other different variables we could get into, but I don't necessarily want to go down that rabbit hole.
It's cheating, if you ask me.
It is straight up cheating.
I will say that in every state, it happens. You go to the very, very blue states, you get jigsaw puzzle pieces. It looks worse in Dallas. I promise you that. You can enter and leave a district 4 times without changing roads or directions.
Yeah.
In precinct 7, It's fairly regular. There's one spot where you can leave and re-enter the district, but that's one exit and re-entry, not multiple exits and re-entries. So with regard to gerrymandering, you said it sounds illegal. Immoral, yes. Illegal, no, because obviously it's legal. That's why they're still doing it. There's this boundary between what is ethics and what is morality.
Well, I mean, if you look back at apartheid, if you look back at slavery, if you look at Jim Crow, all that stuff was legal at the time, right?
And it was immoral then, and it is immoral now.
Yeah. I was gonna ask. I mean, I think this is each of y'all's like first time running. Election early voting starts February the 20th.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Tuesday. Starts Tuesday.
So, what has it been like? What's one thing on the campaign trail so far that you did not expect?
That's a good question.
I can answer that pretty quickly. The money grab. I mean, there are so many people who are sitting out there waiting for first-time candidates. Vultures. My DM is blowing up, and it happens. I get, I've been watching you on Facebook. You look like you may need a little bit of help. You find out, that they're consultants, right? And for this fee, I can do this or that,
$50.
Yes. And nobody warned me about all of these things, and they can, some have great packages, looks like they're going to do all of this stuff for you. And then when you find out, ask around, you find out that they've been doing this for years.
Indeed.
They're just stealing, taking your money, basically.
So yeah, you have not just the consultants, but you have those who try and position themselves like genuine community leaders and try and shake it down as well, which is sad to say the least. But I think one of the biggest things first time out the gate is just the amount of energy. And I mean, I've had days where, I work a full job, stuff with the Urban League, and I'm tired, but this is like, it never ends. It's like, I'm dreaming different things about the race. And so it is definitely time consuming on a whole nother level. It brings in your family, it brings in your friends, all your loved ones, all your relationships. And it really, it just brings it all together. It's crazy.
It's a beast.
It's a roller coaster to say the least.
Funny thing about that, your friends and family also become of course they're your advocates, but it's like they kind of get crazy too, and so they'll send me did you know your opponent is doing this? I just saw your opponent. I just saw a sign. I'm like, okay, they're running for office, just like me. It's okay.
Yes.
It's all right.
DC.
You said that you think that this is my first time running. Actually, I lost in November to Carolyn Evans Shabazz for the HCC trustee district.
Okay. Now I remember why I forgot.
Is that shade? No shade? I don't know.
That was all the shade. That was a whole tree.
As far as surprises, since you asked about surprises, there are those who seem like they would be your natural supporters who aren't really offering any help whatsoever. And I in fact, I had to threaten to sue the Republican Party in order to get on the ballot. They initially sent me a letter rejecting my application for a place on the ballot. And they cited a change in the law as the reason for doing so. And I cited the Texas Supreme Court as saying otherwise as the reason why they have to accept my application.
Wow. Those are some surprise. Listen, that is really our time.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I know, right? It's only a 25-minute segment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but before we get out of here, I will offer you all closing arguments, starting with you, Audrie.
All right, okay. So, again, my name is Audrie Lawton. I'm running for Harris County Justice of the Peace, Precinct 7, Place 2. I am running because I believe I am the candidate that has not only the experience but the vision for the courthouse. A vote for me is a vote for leadership, experience, and commitment. Early voting starts on February 20th and ends on March the 2nd. And of course, election day or primary day is March 6th, 2018. So I would appreciate your vote. My name is Audrie Lawton, Harris County Justice of the Peace, Precinct 7, Place 2.
Yes, my name is Ray Shackleford. I'm a candidate for Harris County Justice of the Peace, Precinct 7, Place 2. And first and foremost, I'm somebody who can judge with compassion. As I mentioned, I have the experience actually working in the housing department with people that are facing evictions. And I think that's very critical to know what they're actually going through when they come in that court and to be able to take that into consideration as you make those decisions. Secondly, because of my business background, I'm able to go in there and assess the processes, look at what are we doing, why are we doing it, how can we make things move more efficiently, and where the budget allows it to put things in place, whether it's technology or other things like that. And finally, make sure that we impact the community. As we've talked about in this conversation, I've been serving the community for the past 10 years in a number of different capacities. And so I'll make sure that I go above and beyond to do outreach, be preventative as it relates to making sure people are educated on housing, but also providing opportunities for young people in the community, which I think is very important. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support so I can be a voice for the community in that seat. You can follow me on Instagram, Ray_Shack. Website is rayshackleford.com. Again, I'm Ray Shackleford, running for Harris County Justice of the Peace, Precinct 7, Place 2.
Again, I'm DC Coldwell, running for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 7. I am the least establishment candidate. I am the youngest candidate in the race. I, as it were, represent the youth, the college-age students, the younger generation, the fresh blood in society that our future depends on. I don't just want to look for change. One of the Thurgood Marshall School of Law, the motto is improve it, protect it, pass it on. I don't just want change, I want improvement. I want to make things better.
Indeed. Well, thank you all for coming on the program, Durrell and Sam. I appreciate it. We'll be back next week.
Can I plug one more thing?
Well, go ahead.
Okay, February 23rd, that's Friday. These folks, as well as the additional two candidates in the race, there'll be a debate at Shape Community Center on Alameda from 6 to 8 p.m. It's going to be moderated by Charnel Thompson and Akua Fayette. Really looking forward to it. They've all RSVP'd. They're all going to be there. This is going to be a really cool debate.
Indeed. Well, thank you all. And don't forget, family, early voting starts on Tuesday, February the 20th. Thank you all for coming on the program.
Thank
Yes, sir.
you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And thank you for listening to Access Houston.